Jack Carter walked into the glowing restaurant on Station Arc 9. It wasn't just any restaurant, it was one of the galaxy's most expensive and secretive places. The kind of place where aliens with too much money came to taste experiences they couldn't get anywhere else. He was wearing a black jacket, boots covered in dust, and a small chip on his wrist that marked him as a human traitor. The host scanned him from head to toe and smiled politely. "Right this way, sir," the host said, guiding him into a private booth with a full view of the cosmic city outside. Jack sat down, looking at the strange menu floating above the table. Everything was written in symbols from 10 different languages, but his translator chip decoded them into simple English. Roasted nebula snails, star squid soup, moon lizard tails, nothing surprised him. He had seen worse during his travels, but then something at the bottom caught his eye. Special rare. Ask server directly. No description, no price. Just those words when the waiter came. A tall insectoid with silver skin and 4 arms. Jack tapped the special item. "I'll try this," Jack said. "The special rare." The insectoid paused, one of its eyes blinking sideways. "Are you sure, sir?" "Yeah, why not?" Jack said, forcing a smile. The waiter nodded, whispered something into a wrist device, and disappeared behind the curtains. Jack looked around, noticing how no one else in the restaurant reacted. Everyone was eating, drinking, laughing, and sharing food. Aliens of all shapes and sizes. But the moment suddenly felt heavy. He had been in dangerous places before, but this felt different, like he had just pressed the wrong button. And now something strange was coming. 5 minutes later, a group of servers rolled out a silver cart covered by a glass dome. It stopped beside Jack's table with a soft hiss of steam. The glass lifted slowly, and what Jack saw made his blood run cold. Inside the dome was a girl, an alien girl. She was small, thin, with glowing blue skin and silver eyes. Her hair looked like soft wires that gently floated around her head. She was alive, breathing, trembling, and looking right at Jack. "What the hell is this?" Jack whispered. The head waiter stepped forward, his voice smooth and emotionless. "You ordered the special rare, sir," he said. "She's freshly sourced and still breathing." Jack stared at the girl, who didn't look older than 16. In human years, she wasn't speaking, but her eyes screamed fear. He looked around still. No one was reacting. This was normal here. "This is a joke, right?" Jack said, his voice tense. "Not at all, sir," the waiter replied. "Our finest product, only offered to selected guests." Jack felt something shift inside him. He didn't sign up for this. He had ordered a steak, not a living being. But if he refused now, he'd bring attention to himself. And he wasn't sure if this place allowed people to just walk away. Suddenly the girl moved. Her lips trembled. And then clearly, softly, she whispered, "Help me." Jack's heart stopped. She spoke in English. He leaned in, eyes locked with hers. "How do you know my language?" He whispered, but she didn't answer, just looked down, afraid. The waiter noticed Jack's reaction and said, "Some guests prefer emotional realism. It enhances the flavor." "Flavor?" Jack said, anger rising in his voice. "She's not a meal, she's alive." "Of course she is," the waiter said. "Rare means alive." "Sir, until you begin." Jack sat back, trying to calm down. He had to think fast, getting angry now. Wouldn't help the girl or himself. He had to pretend, to play along, until he figured out what was really going on. This wasn't just a sick joke, this was a business. And if this girl could speak English, maybe others could too. Maybe this was more than just a restaurant. Maybe it was a front for something far more evil. Jack smiled faintly and nodded at the waiter. "Bring me a glass of red wine first," he said. "Of course, sir," the waiter replied and walked away. The moment he left, Jack leaned closer to the girl. "I don't know what's going on," he whispered, "but I'm going to get you out of here." She looked up slowly, a tear running down her silver cheek, her voice barely a whisper. "They'll kill us both." Jack didn't respond, but deep in his chest, something lit up. Not fear, not doubt, but fire. This wasn't just dinner anymore. This was a rescue mission, and it had just begun. Asterisk, the wine glass was still half full when Jack saw the waiter return. Behind him, 2 silent guards in red armor stood near the kitchen door. They didn't move, but their glowing visors were locked. On him, Jack understood the message. They were watching him now closely. Jack took a slow sip of the wine, pretending to enjoy it, but his thoughts were racing. This place didn't just serve food, it sold lives. And someone had decided that Jack was now part of their little game. The alien girl still sat quietly inside. The dome, she wasn't crying anymore. She was staring straight ahead, still and silent like a statue. But her eyes flicked toward Jack once, then back down. A signal, maybe, or a warning. Jack tapped the side of his wristband. Opening a hidden scan mode, he aimed it at the glass dome. No heat signatures, no alarms. It was just a cover meant to trap, not protect. Then he noticed something else. Tiny dots glowing on the floor tiles beneath her. Tracking sensors. She was tagged like cargo. "Would you like to begin, sir?" The waiter asked, gently placing a strange-looking fork and blade on the table. Jack gave a short laugh. "Actually, I'd love to meet the chef," he said. "Excuse me?" "The person who prepares something this rare," Jack said, leaning in. "I want to thank them personally." The waiter paused, unsure. "I'll check," he said, then walked away again. Jack used the moment to whisper toward the dome. "What's your name?" The girl didn't look at him, but replied softly, "Allura, are you alone?" "Not anymore," she whispered back. That single sentence hit Jack harder than expected. He had rescued cargo before stolen tech, outlawed illegal weapons. But never someone like her, never someone who spoke with pain and hope in the same breath. A new voice broke the moment. "That's a strange request." Jack turned and saw a man, not an alien, not a robot. A human well-dressed, smiling, but with sharp eyes that didn't blink enough. "I'm Chef Ran," he said, sitting down across from Jack. "You wanted to thank me." Jack nodded. "This is unique." Ran leaned forward, resting his fingers together. "We deal in what others are too weak to accept," he said. "The universe is full of flavor, but most people can't stomach the truth." Jack tilted his head. "And what's the truth?" "That value isn't born," Ran said. "It's taken." He gestured toward Allura. "She is not just a body, she's a story, a feeling, a reaction." He smiled again. "Fear flavors the experience, sir, and you ordered the rarest feeling." Of all, Jack felt his stomach twist. He had heard of cruelty before, but this was art in madness still. He forced a calm voice. "And how do you catch something so rare?" "We don't catch," Ran said. "We buy." Jack's hand clenched under the table. He needed to get Allura out now, but rushing would get them both killed. He needed information first. How much would someone like her cost? Ran chuckled. "For a human?" "No price," Jack blinked. "She's human?" "Not exactly," Ran said. "But closer species mimics your biology in interesting ways." He tapped his own temple. "Telepathic resonance, body warmth, facial symmetry, very familiar to your kind." Jack realized then. This wasn't random. They wanted humans to order girls like Allura. It made the experience more personal, more sick, more profitable. Ran stood up, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Enjoy your meal, Mr. Carter," he said. "If you need another, we take private orders." As he left, Jack leaned toward Allura again. "I'm getting you out of here," he said. "You can't," she whispered. "They see everything. Then we break what they see," Jack said. "But I need your help." Allura closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Jack heard something inside his head, not with ears, but with thought. "I can show you," her voice said, without sound. "But you must not panic." And in that moment, Jack saw her memories. A flash of cages, screaming, machines that whispered lies. He saw dozens like her, taken from ships, colonies, even rescue pods. Sold, trained, broken, served. And now he saw himself sitting at the table, just another buyer. Another chance to escape or die. He gasped and pulled back, dizzy. What was that? My truth, she replied, still not moving her lips. And now, part of yours. Jack knew there was no going back. He had seen too much, felt too much. Now it wasn't just about saving her. It was about destroying them. He leaned back in his chair, smiling for the watching cameras, but his eyes were cold, focused, ready, inside his jacket. His fingers touched a small, hidden button, arming the first of 3 devices he had smuggled inside. The table was set. The plan was forming. And this time, the meal was going to bite back. The lights above flickered for just half a second. It was enough. Enough for Jack to slide the tiny pulse jammer into the corner of the table. No one noticed. The servers kept moving. The music kept playing. The aliens kept laughing. But deep beneath the restaurant, a silent door unlocked itself. Allura didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes met Jack's and he gave a tiny nod. Phase 1 had started. Jack stood and smiled for the security camera above him. I'd like to see the kitchen, he said, loud enough for the nearest staff to hear. A different waiter approached, this one mechanical, cold, sleek, silent. This way, sir, it said, leading him past velvet curtains and guarded doors. Behind the luxury, behind the soft lights and rich music, the real Arc-9 revealed itself. Dark metal halls, buzzing machines, leaking pipes, no more gold and crystal, only wires, blood and heat. The doors opened into a cold room, and Jack stopped breathing. For a moment, rows of transparent tanks filled the walls. Inside them, floating, curled up, were creatures. Not animals, not fish, but sentient beings, dozens of species, young, scared, barely alive. Each had a label above their tank: mild-minded, spicy fear, strong emotions, high demand. Jack walked slowly, pretending to admire, pretending to belong, but inside he was shaking. This wasn't a kitchen. It was a storage unit for lives. A catalog of pain served to the highest bidder. At the far end of the room stood Chef Ran again. His smile hadn't changed. Impressive. Isn't it? He said, walking beside Jack. Every tank tells a story, every mind a different flavor. Jack didn't reply. He couldn't. He was too busy trying not to scream. You humans like to think you're above it all, Ran continued, tapping a tank gently. Inside, a small gray-skinned girl opened one glowing eye. But the truth is, your species invented this kind of hunger. Jack clenched his jaw. What's the process? He asked, voice steady. Selection, conditioning, seasoning, Ran said. Then service, seasoning? Emotion control, Ran explained. We use their memories, good ones, bad ones, to shape the taste. He smiled wider. It's beautiful, really. A sudden scream echoed from behind a nearby wall. Jack turned, but no one else reacted. To them, it was normal. Just another part of the preparation. A small door opened to the left, and Jack caught a glimpse of a steel table, straps, wires, tools. He looked away, pretending to yawn, his wristband buzzed once Allura was moving. Phase 2. Do you ever think about what they feel? Jack asked softly. Ran looked surprised. For a moment, he said, but that's not my job. And if one of them escapes? Ran chuckled. They don't, Jack smiled. Let's hope you're right. Suddenly, alarms began to buzz, soft at first, then louder. Ran's smile vanished. What is that? He snapped, tapping his control screen. Unauthorized movement on level 2. A voice said through a speaker, containment breach. Jack stepped back casually. Looks like someone's running late for dinner, he said. Ran's eyes narrowed. He turned to shout orders, but the lights flickered again, this time for longer. Then, for the first time, Jack heard her not through his ears, but inside his mind. Jack, I'm in. Allura's voice echoed in his thoughts. I found others 20. Maybe more. Can you unlock them? I already did, she said, her mental voice shaking. But they're scared. They won't move without help. Jack looked around, calculating fast. He couldn't fight his way through, not yet. But he could give her time. He slammed his palm against a tank release button. One of the chambers hissed open, spilling water and a weak, blinking creature onto the floor. An alarm blared louder. Rand spun around, shocked. "What are you doing?" He shouted. Jack didn't answer. He ran down the corridor, past the kitchen, past rooms he didn't recognize. Behind him, chaos exploded, guards rushing, alarms screaming, chefs yelling. And somewhere deep inside the walls, Allura was guiding them out. She wasn't just a victim now. She was the key to everything. Jack dove into a narrow shaft, crawling through wires and steam. His hands burned. His breath was short. But he reached the emergency access door, punched in the override code, and found himself in a dark control room. Screens flickered, showing different parts of the restaurant. He saw guards chasing shadows, tanks exploding, smoke spreading, and then Allura, standing tall in the middle of a group of freed prisoners, her eyes glowing bright, her face calm. She was leading them. She was no longer afraid. Jack reached for the comm system and smiled. "Let's turn this kitchen into hell," he whispered. The air inside the control room was thick with smoke and static. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead as the emergency lights blinked red across the monitors. Screams echoed through the vents. Some human, some not. It had begun. The escape wasn't just a plan anymore. It was happening, across the screen. Jack watched Allura walking through the chaos like a ghost in the fire. She was calm, focused, glowing softly with strange light. Around her were the freed prisoners, some limping, some terrified, but all moving together. Allura's mind voice echoed inside Jack's thoughts. "We're heading to the freight bay." "Good," Jack replied. "Keep to the tunnels, I'll distract security." He flipped switches on the control panel, cutting power to hallway 3 and overloading the fire alarms in sector 2. Sprinklers rained down on a row of armed guards, shorting their weapons and blinding their visors. Jack smiled. That's what they got for trusting a system to do a soldier's job. Suddenly, a metallic crash echoed behind him. Jack turned fast, drawing his pulse pistol just in time to dodge a black-gloved fist. A security bot lunged at him from the shadows. Eyes glowing red, Jack fired once, twice missed both. The bot pinned him to the wall, its cold hand crushing his neck. Then it stopped. Sparks shot from its head, and it dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Behind it stood Allura, breathing heavily, her hand glowing bright blue. "You left the door open," she whispered. Jack coughed, then laughed. "Right on time. We don't have much," Allura said. "They're blocking the escape tunnels." Jack nodded. "Then we take the loading dock. Together." They moved through a maze of fire and falling walls. The restaurant was dying, systems failing, flames rising, bots turning on each other. What was once a place of elite luxury had become a burning cage of cruelty. And Jack was glad they reached the lower floors, where delivery drones once brought in ingredients. Now it was their way out, but not without company. A squad of elite guards stood between them and the last cargo ship. Fully armored, full auto weapons, no hesitation. Jack pulled Allura behind cover. "This is it," he whispered. "They won't let us pass." Allura looked at him, her eyes burning with something new, not just power, but purpose. She took a deep breath. "I can give you 10 seconds, she said. "What are you talking about?" "You'll know," she replied. Before he could argue, she stepped out from behind the wall, hands raised, eyes closed. The guards yelled warnings, but she didn't stop. Then silence, total, unnatural silence. Jack peeked out. The guards were frozen, mouths open, weapons shaking. One dropped to his knees, crying. Another screamed and fired into the wall, lost in illusion. Allura had cracked their minds just long enough. "Now, Jack," her voice rang inside his head. Sharp like lightning, he didn't hesitate. He sprinted through the chaos, firing at the prey. Drone controls, cargo crates exploded, drones crashed, guards fell into confusion. And Allura collapsed behind him, drained but smiling. He picked her up gently and carried her aboard the last ship. "Hang in there," he whispered. "We're almost out," but the ship's engines didn't start. A warning flashed on the screen. Docking override active. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Chef Ran burned, bleeding, but still alive, his white uniform now covered in ash and rage. "I knew you were trouble," he said coldly. "But you're not leaving." Jack laid Allura down and stepped forward. "Pulse gun ready. Look around, Chef," Jack growled. "Your menu is on fire." Ran laughed bitterly. "You think this ends here?" He hissed. "There are 10 more places like this. 100 buyers ready to eat what you just saved." "Maybe," Jack said. "But tonight." "I made them choke." Ran lunged, pulling a hidden blade. Jack ducked, punched, dodged again. They fought in the smoke and sparks, blade against gun, steel against will, until Jack grabbed Ran's own weapon and stabbed it into the docking panel. Shorting the lock, the ship's engines roared to life. Jack kicked Ran back, slammed the hatch shut, and launched. Through the glass, he watched the restaurant burn from above. The fire lit up the stars as the station's alarms echoed into silence. It was over, at least for now. Jack dropped beside Allura, who opened her eyes slowly. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Jack said. "We did." Allura smiled faintly, her skin dim but still glowing. "We're not safe yet," she said. "I know," Jack replied, looking out at the stars. "But we're free." She reached for his hand, and in his mind, he heard her voice once more. "Now let's make sure no one else ever ends up on a plate." The stars outside the ship were cold and quiet, but inside, Jack couldn't breathe easy. His hands gripped the pilot controls tighter than they should. His eyes scanned the radar again and again. No alarms, no pursuers, just space, for now, behind him. Allura sat on the med bench, her breathing slow but steady. The glow on her skin had dimmed since the escape. Her powers had cost her. She hadn't said a word since they took off. But Jack could feel her presence in his head like a quiet echo, a voice waiting to speak again. Jack didn't trust silence. Not after what they'd seen. Not after what they'd done. He checked the ship's comms. No signal out. Jammed from the inside. Someone had locked the systems before they fled, and he had a feeling it wasn't random. Then came the ping. A soft sound, innocent, but sharp like a knife in the dark. A file had appeared on the screen. "Welcome back, Mr. Carter," it said, blinking softly. Attached was a video. Jack hesitated, then pressed play. The screen lit up with a man's face, human, calm, wearing a suit that didn't belong to a chef. It belonged to someone richer, cleaner, and more dangerous. "Mr. Carter," the man said smoothly. "Impressive work." Jack frowned. "Who are you?" He muttered. The man continued. "My name is irrelevant, but my reach is not. I represent the investors behind the Arc-9 operation. You burned one of our kitchens, yes, but we own the recipe." Allura sat up slowly, listening. The voice kept talking, calm like ice. "We offer you a choice," it said. "Deliver the girl to our secondary station, or you and she both vanish into forgotten space." Jack's jaw tightened. "They know we escaped," he said. Allura's voice whispered in his mind. "They were watching from the start." Jack paced the ship. Heart pounding, he thought they had outsmarted the monsters, but the monsters had more heads than he guessed. Killing the chef wasn't enough. The real beast sat behind a desk, not a stove. Allura stood, wobbling slightly. "They'll never stop," she said aloud this time. "They don't want money, they want control." Jack nodded. "Then we take it from them." "But how?" she asked. "We have nothing." Jack smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind soldiers wear before they do something stupid and brave. "We have something they fear more than fire," he said. "Allura, your voice, your mind, your truth." He pointed at the console. "You said you can speak through thoughts." She nodded slowly. "I can. Then we show the galaxy what they're really eating," Jack said. "We broadcast it to every system, every human colony, every alien trader." Allura's eyes widened. "They'll kill us before it reaches even one channel." "Maybe," Jack said, loading the stolen security footage into the drive. But I'd rather die feeding the truth than serving the lie. Together, they worked in silence. Allura rewired the comm panel with her telepathic feedback. Jack boosted power to the long range transmitter using parts from the engine. The ship groaned, sparks flew, lights blinked on and off. But the signal lit green, ready to launch. Jack uploaded the video footage from inside the tanks, the kitchens, the cages. He added Rand's speech, the guards, the labels. He recorded his own face, staring cold into the lens. "This is Jack Carter," he said. "And this is what they're hiding. Share it, spread it, scream it. If we don't stop them now, we're next." He hit send. The moment the signal launched, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared, incoming fire from behind. A black ship had found them silent, fast, weaponized. They were being tracked the whole time. "Brace!" Jack shouted, pulling the ship into a sharp dive. Laser blasts tore past the windows, one grazing the left wing. The engines coughed but held. Smoke filled the cockpit. "We can't outrun them." Allura cried. "We don't need to," Jack growled. "The message is out." He angled the ship toward the nearby asteroid belt. "Harder to shoot what you can't see." The enemy followed, but the rocks were tight. Spinning, shifting, deadly, Jack flew like a madman, dodging boulders the size of cities. The enemy got closer, then crash. A direct hit. Their own ship slammed into an asteroid and vanished in flame. Jack slumped back in the seat, gasping for breath. Allura leaned beside him, exhausted, smiling. "Faintly, we did it," she whispered. "For now," Jack replied. But the menus changed. Asterisk had started with a whisper. One message, one signal, floating through space like a spark in the dark. But by the time it reached the outer colonies, it had already become a fire. Screens flickered on, news feeds crashed, and in 1,000 languages, the truth played on loop. The alien girl in the tank, the cages, the menu, the fear, the human, who refused to eat and instead chose to fight. Jack Carter's name spread like thunder through silence. Some called him a traitor, others called him a hero. But no one could ignore him anymore. On a moon near Vega, alien workers dropped their tools and walked out of the factories. On a merchant ship above Titan IV, 3 human crew members smashed their luxury food supply into space. And on hidden networks deep in the code, people started whispering 2 words louder than ever before: rare rebellion. But not everyone was celebrating. Inside a floating boardroom, made of crystal and gold, 10 humans sat around a table too clean to be honest. The investors, the ones who had funded Arc-9 and places worse than it. They watched the news feed in silence, faces hard as stone. "He's just one man," one of them said. "A dead one soon," another added, tapping his ring against the glass. But the oldest of them all, a woman with silver eyes, leaned forward. "He's not the threat," she said. "She is." They knew Allura wasn't just a girl anymore. She had become a symbol, a face that broke through the screens and whispered into minds without asking permission. She had shown the universe what they were hiding. And now, others were listening, meanwhile. On a junker ship drifting near an asteroid field, Jack sat on the floor beside Allura. They were tired, hungry, wounded. But they were alive. And more importantly, they weren't alone anymore. A hologram flickered to life in front of them. A woman in a worn-out uniform spoke quickly. "Name's Captain Dre," she said. "I run a rebel outpost on Mars 17. You've started something big, Carter. Now we either make it count, or we die loud." Jack looked at Allura, who nodded slowly. They had started with escape now. They had something bigger: resistance. 2 days later, they landed in a hollowed-out cave on Mars 17. Inside were dozens of fighters, humans, aliens, hybrids, engineers, hackers, smugglers, survivors, each with their own pain, each with their own reason to fight. Captain Dre walked up to Jack, shaking his hand with firm steel fingers. "Didn't think you'd be this clean," she said with a smirk. Jack grinned. "Didn't think you'd be this real, in the war room." Lights glowed across a massive table, marked with red dots: active kitchens, hidden trafficking lines, buyers, hunters. Allura stood before them all, her voice now stronger, clearer. "The system isn't broken," she said. "It was designed this way. They hide behind menus and luxury," she continued. "But they can't hide from us now." One by one, the rebels began to speak. "We hit their signal towers. We hijack their delivery drones. We expose every buyer's name on the net." It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice. Slow, risky, dangerous. But real. Later that night, Jack stood outside the cave entrance, staring at the pie. Stars, he heard footsteps, then Allura beside him. "You never wanted this, did you?" she asked. Jack shook his head. "I just wanted steak," he said, then laughed softly. "But now I want something else." "What's that?" To make them scared, suddenly, alarms echoed through the outpost. A drone had been spotted. Approaching fast, Jack and Allura ran inside, weapons ready. But instead of an enemy, it was a message pod, old tech, hard to track, sealed tight. Inside it was a simple chip, and one line carved into its metal: "You're not the only ones." Watching, Jack looked at Allura. "Is this a threat?" She shook her head. "No," she said softly. "It's an invitation, because somewhere out there, behind the enemy walls, someone else was waiting. Another rebel, another voice, another fire ready to burn." The rare rebellion had begun, and this was only the first course. The stars over Earth were quiet, but beneath the silence, war was boiling. Not with guns, not with fleets, but with truth. And truth was proving to be the sharpest weapon of all. In the shadows of Earth's orbit, a small rebel ship coasted silently toward the upper towers of New Eden Station. This wasn't just any station, it was the home of the board. The investors, the architects, the monsters who wore fine suits and smiled at suffering. This was the last kitchen, the source of every order, every recipe, every lie inside the ship. Jack tightened his vest and checked his weapon. The scars on his arms had faded, but the fire in his eyes had not. Beside him stood Allura, now wearing armor shaped from her own tech, part metal, part memory, all power. She didn't glow anymore. She burned. Captain Dre's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Team Echo is ready to breach the Com Tower. Team Nova is inside the server room. And Team Ghost, well, they're ghosts," Jack smiled. "Let's finish the menu," he said. They moved like shadows through the ventilation system, each step measured, each breath quiet. Every inch of New Eden looked perfect, polished halls, floating music, warm lights. But behind the walls, machines hummed with horror. And behind the glass-rich buyers waited for tonight's special tasting. The last course of cruelty, served fresh. Jack and Allura reached the observation deck just above the dining floor. Below them, humans in gold robes raised glasses filled with blood-red drinks. On the stage stood a white cage. Inside it, a child, not human, not alien, but both, hybrid, innocent, bred for flavor. The same plan recycled. One final time. Jack felt his fists tighten. "I'm done watching," he growled. Before Allura could stop him, Jack jumped down onto the floor. Gasps erupted, guards moved in. But Jack raised his pistol and fired into the speaker above the stage. Sparks rained. Down, silence fell. "All of you," Jack shouted. "Look at what you've become." He pointed at the cage. "You paid to watch a child die. You think silence and money keep you clean. But blood doesn't wash that easy." The guards moved closer, weapons drawn. But then the lights flickered hard, and from every screen, a face appeared. Allura. Projected from the rebel ships, the Com Towers, the stolen satellites. She wasn't just talking now. She was inside their minds. Her voice echoed through every room, every hallway, every data stream. "You watched us suffer. You ate our pain. Now feel it." The guests began to scream, not from pain, but from truth. Allura was feeding their minds their own history. For the first time, they saw what they had done, what their credits had paid for. Every cage, every scream, every moment, served back cold. Some fainted. Others dropped their glasses. Many simply froze. The rebellion had no army. It had awakening, and it was louder than bombs. From behind the chaos, the head investor stepped. Forward, calm, cold, her silver eyes gleaming. "You think this changes anything?" She hissed, "We don't build kitchens. We build appetite." Jack stepped in front of Allura. "Then let's starve it," he said. The final moment came fast. Guards rushed forward. Guests tried to escape. The servers exploded from system overload. Jack ran to the child's cage, broke the lock, lifted the child into his arms. Allura raised her hands and unleashed her last wave mindfire, so strong it shattered glass without a sound. The roof of New Eden cracked, the lights blew out, and above it all, Allura's voice spoke one final line. "This is the last taste." Jack and Allura escaped through a side corridor as the station shook from inside. They didn't look back. They didn't need to, because it was done 3 weeks. Later, in a quiet forest on a green planet, Jack sat under a tree with the child beside him. Allura walked up with a basket of fresh fruit, smiling for the first time in days. No guards, no screens, no lies, just quiet, just peace. But they both knew peace is something you protect, not something you wait for. As the sun set, Jack looked to Allura and asked, "What now?" She looked out at the stars, eyes glowing once again, not from pain but purpose. "Now," she said, "we feed hope instead, and for the first time in the galaxy's long, cruel history, the taste of freedom was finally served."